everyone else is on camera off, so it's only one camera showing, taking up all the space.
If committee members want to show this camera, that's fine. It'll show on the video, but as long as you keep your camera, your microphone on mute.
Thank you all, and good evening all. Welcome to this meeting of the Policy and Resources Scrutiny Committee, held on 9th November 2021 using Microsoft Teams. This meeting will be recorded and made available to view via the Council's website, except for discussions involving confidential or exempt items. Therefore, the images, audio of those individuals speaking will be publicly available to all via the recording on the Council website at caerphilly.gov.uk. Before I start the meeting proper, can I just note with regret the news of yesterday that Jack Liz, aged 10, died in the Pentwyn Penarel area yesterday as a result of a dog attack. I'm sure the whole of the Caerphilly County Borough community is mourning with that family at their tragic loss. Can we just take a minute, please, to show a minute's silence as a mark of respect? Thank you all. Thank you very much, everyone. On to our agenda for our meeting this evening. The first item on our agenda is to receive apologies for absence. We've had apologies from Councillor Christine Forehead, Councillor Brenda Miles, Councillor John Taylor and Councillor Roy Sorales. Do we know of any other apologies, please? No, okay. Thank you. Can the Scrutiny Manager please take a roll call of the meeting? Would that be possible, please?
Yes, Chair, happy to take a roll call.
Thank you.
Members of the Scrutiny Committee in the first instance, if I call your name, could you just confirm your attendance, please? Councillor Adams.
Here.
Councillor Aldworth.
Present.
Councillor Cuss.
Present.
Councillor Elaine Forehead.
Yeah.
Councillor Harding.
Present.
Councillor Johnston.
Present.
Councillor Kirby.
Present.
Councillor Mann.
Uh,
I can't see Councillor Sargent. I can't see Councillor Simmons and Councillor Whittle.
You're on mute, Lindsay.
I beg your pardon. I am here, Chair. Thank you very much. Sorry.
Thank you.
And Cabinet Member Councillor Stenner.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for doing that, Kath. Cabinet Member Councillor Colin Gordon hopes to join us during today's meeting, but he may arrive late, just for information. Thank you for that. On to item 2 on our agenda, which is declarations of interest. Councillors and officers are reminded of their personal responsibility to declare any personal and or prejudicial interests in respect of any item of business on this agenda in accordance with the Local Government Act 2000, the Council's Constitution and the Code of Conduct for both councillors and officers. Are there any declarations of interest, please? None? Okay, thank you. On to item 3 on our agenda, which is to approve and sign the minutes of the Policy and Resources Scrutiny Committee meeting held on the 28th of September 2021. If we'll go through the minutes for accuracy page by page. So page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, and page 6. If the meeting feels the minutes are accurate, can I have someone to move them, please?
Move.
Who was that, please?
Councillor Adams, and I think it was Councillor Johnston. so we can move and second between us.
That's great. Thank you both very much. We'll now have the pop-up screen for our voting then, please. Thank you. Is that complete now, please?
I don't know if Councillor Elaine Ford wants to give a verbal vote, Chair.
Thank you for the
She's
prompt.
on as a guest.
Thank you. Councillor Forehead, would you like to vote, please?
Thank you, Chair, but the voting facility has come up, so I think I'm okay.
Oh, that's great. Good. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, that's everybody's voted, Chair. That's moved.
Thank you very much. That's carried. On to item 4 now then. Consideration of any matter referred to this committee in accordance with the call-in procedure. Has any item been called in, please?
None, Chair.
Thank you, Kath. Then we move on to item 5, Policy and Resources Scrutiny Committee Forward Work Programme. Kath, would you like to take us through that, please?
Thank you, Chair. I just move members to Appendix 1. As you'll see, the next meeting of the committee is on the 11th of January. We've got 4 items planned for that one, and a couple of information items. I would identify also for members to note, they're probably aware that we have a special joint meeting of all the scrutiny committees on the 24th of January, just for members to make sure they've got that in their diaries. And the meeting after that will be the 22nd of February. I haven't had any indication for any changes to the work programme, Chair.
No, okay, thank you for that, Kath. Any member have any comment or observation on the forward work programme, please?
Sorry, just one, Chair, if I may. Sorry,
Thank
I
you.
should
Yes,
have.
Councillor Mann.
I've already made comment to Steve Harris and a couple of people about how incredibly late the joint scrutiny meeting is on the budget. I mean, by then, most of the budget will be in place anyway. Realising that the settlement is coming very late, I do wonder what opinions members can put in late January is going to make much difference to what is actually decided. But
Okay.
that's it, basically, Chair.
Thank you for that observation, Councillor Mann. Steve, did you want to come in? Your camera's on.
Yeah, I'll touch on this later in the meeting, but Councillor Mann is right. The settlement is very, very late this year, same as it was last year. We're not going to receive the details from Welsh Government until the 21st of December, which means we have to finalise our draft budget proposals within a matter of weeks. And we'll be taking those through to Cabinet on the 19th of January. That's the reason why the joint scrutiny is on the 24th. We put it in as soon as we possibly can, after those draft budget proposals are available. And there will be a window of opportunity then of 3 to 4 weeks for members to express their views. And I said to Councillor Mann, I will of course make myself available as well for attending the group meetings to go through the budget proposals in detail.
Thank you for that, Steve. I know Councillor Whittle wants to come in, but I'll allow Councillor Mann to respond first.
Yeah, no, thank you, Chair. I said I don't envy Steve and his staff studying the settlement over their Christmas dinner, but we'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Councillor Whittle.
Thank you, Chair. It's not so much a comment on the forward work programme. I'm very okay with that as best we can manage under the circumstances. It's the font that appears both in hard print and indeed now on our new computers. Now they've all been had their MOT or whatever it was called recently. Finding the font extremely difficult to follow. And with respect, I'm one of the youngest councillors. I think I'm, I'm only 25-ish. I can't remember now. But I think this font really needs to be made a little larger because, people must bear in mind that many of us now wear spectacles to follow the decisions.
Thank you for that input. Ed, please.
Not anyone's fault, I'm sure. Yeah.
I'd just like to respond to Councillor Whittle, if I may. I too am sort of 24, 25-ish, and also now in need of spectacles. So I take your point. I will. I'll have a chat with colleagues in Democratic Services. I'm sure there must be a way of reprofiling that particular page, even if we go on to a couple of lines rather than having it stretched out to that extent. So I'll take that on board, Councillor Whittle.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you, Chair.
Kath,
Thank you.
please.
Yeah, just to highlight to Councillor Whittle, in the meantime, if he's got it open as a PDF document, if he hovers his mouse towards the bottom of the screen, you'll see a percentage. If you click on that, you can increase the percentage and it will increase the size of the document.
Right, okay, your skills are far greater than mine, I'm afraid.
Thank you for that helpful suggestion, Kath.
I'm a Luddite, Chair. I've been called a Luddite by my own colleagues, so it's no problem. No problem.
You're not alone, Councillor Whittle, I promise you. Okay, thank you for that.
Chair, it may be of help just to say there is also a plus and minus sign on the top, towards the top of the screen, which might help.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Van. Do I have someone to move agreement of the forward work programme, please?
Happy to do so, Chair. Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Is it seconded, please?
I'll second that, Councillor Morgan.
Thank you very much, Councillor Morgan. Can we have the vote on this then, please? Thank you.
That's moved, Chair.
Thank you, Kath. Thank you, members. What's the next item then? So, item 6 then, to receive and consider the following cabinet reports. Have any been brought forward, please, Kath?
No, Chair, none.
Thank you for that. On to item 7, Team Caerphilly Better Together Transformation Strategy 6-month update. Councillor Elena Stenner is the cabinet member here. Good evening, Elena. Would you like to speak to this, please?
Thank you, Chair. The report before us this evening is to update members on the progress under Team Caerphilly Better Together Transformation Strategy. You will note from the report that an all-member seminar will be delivered on the 13th of December 2021. The report provides an update on actions to deliver the strategy to date. It also includes a summary of the progress made against the strategic actions, including the wellbeing and place-shaping framework. The recommendation is shown at 3.1 of the report for members to note the content and make any comments on the progress against the strategy prior to the update being given to Cabinet. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stenner. I understand Kath Peters is with us, so hopefully, do you want to speak first, Kath, or do you want to take any questions?
Chair, I have a presentation. If you're happy, I can share that. It is quite a long report, and it's probably might be easier for members to take members through it than into a presentation.
That would be helpful. Yes, please, Kath.
If you can just confirm to me, can you see that slide?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Right. Obviously, Councillor Stenner has just updated you. That is the 6-monthly update to yourselves as partnership policy and resources scrutiny committee. And prior to this report going to cabinet, and then we've got a member seminar on the 30th of December. There we go. Okay, so obviously we've got a current series of corporate-wide reviews, but also the report, as Councillor Stenner says, updates on the wellbeing and place-shaping framework, commercial and investment strategy, and also the ongoing Caerphilly conversation engagement strand with communities as well. And just for you to be aware, Chair members, we do have the corporate review leads in attendance here this evening as well, so they will be taking you through the irrelevant parts of the report, and are obviously here to answer questions as well.
Thank you.
And just a reminder, for the first part of the report, we've got 10 corporate reviews ongoing at the moment. They are there and obviously form part of the report, and then you've got a short summary within the report, and the appendices give a little bit more detail. So we'll go through each one in turn, and I think I'll probably Gareth Jenkins is the lead for walk-in services. I'll hand over to Gareth for this one.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kath. Thanks, Chair. As it says there, the walk-in services review has completed the mapping and scoping exercise, and we literally, as a group, worked our way through the whole county, reviewing every building and asset that we own. We looked at the usage of the building. We looked at what else was in the locality. We looked at the footfall. We looked at the physical state of the buildings, the running costs, and the future maintenance costs as well. So all of those factors come into play when we're looking at a set of recommendations going forward. And in doing so, we wanted to identify the key sites and the most viable locations really going forward. The second bullet point reflects the decision-making tool that we've employed, and we came up with a 3-tiered approach to thinking about how council buildings might be used going forward, with tier 1 being almost the flagship council hub, all singing, all dancing, access to the full range of services, manned throughout opening hours, and then tier 2 and tier 3 in key areas as well. We're entering phase 2, as everyone will be aware, and we're ready to consult more widely on what those options might look like. And we want that consultation to influence and shape the final decisions going forward, obviously. However, I just want to take the opportunity really to raise a few key messages and themes that have emerged through this work, and they are that we need to learn from the COVID experience. We need to maximise the opportunities that COVID has given us, because there's lots of learning in terms of the way that we've been delivering services. Customer expectations have changed quite considerably in that time, and I'm sure all of our expectations have changed, society as a whole. We've been looking and using alternatives to cash payments, so they've been very successful, so we need to build on that and harness that and maximise it going forward. Appointments for certain areas, particularly in terms of housing, for instance, they've continued to be operating through the locality offices that we've got. So that has resumed, if you like, so that we're already supporting that different approach. We obviously need, and we recognise the need to have good online digital services to back this up. They've got to be fit for purpose, haven't they, in order to support the way that we want to work in the future. But we're very confident that by doing this, we'll redesign the way that we're interfacing with customers to provide more comprehensive services in better and well-chosen locations going forward. So it's quite an exciting opportunity for us. So I look forward to being able to share that in future meetings. I'm happy to take any questions there. I don't know how you want to handle this, Chair, in terms of just dealing with that.
I think if we go through the whole presentation, please, and then members may want to come back. I'm sure they're making notes, don't worry. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The next slide is one of Liz Lucas's reviews, so I'll hand over to Liz.
Thank you, Kath. Good evening, Chair and members. The remote contract review, just as we were starting this, COVID hit us, and like Gareth had just said, now we had to go from face-to-face into more of a remote contract with our customers. So one of the key elements was the way in which our customers would actually contact us through the telephone. We already had a system in place, MICC telephony system, which was in use within our contact centre. We've now rolled that out to get to over 200 call agents across 14 service areas. And this has made a fundamental difference, not only to the agents that's handling the calls, but also to the customer. What this system actually provides for us is a live data of a queuing system. So we're able to see who's in the queue and make sure that people are not waiting long periods of time to get the calls answered. It's given us much better data of the number of people ringing us into what areas as well. So this has been a great benefit to us, and we're looking to roll that out now right across the organisation. But coupled with that, we're also looking at a total review of telephony within the organisation and how we will use that with the new Office 365 system and obviously the Teams platform that we are using here tonight. We are looking to modernise our website and our staff intranet, making this more accessible to our customers and also to the staff. This is currently in discovery phase, and we are working with the Centre of Digital Public Services. We were hoping that they would lead the discovery phase, but like us all, they're having resource issues. So we are leading that phase now internally. We've got developing our tender specification and also working on our impact assessment for the website. I think one of the most exciting things coming out of this review at the moment is the way in which we're using automation and the work we've been doing around digital workforce. And one of the key areas we're working on currently is the way in which we digitize our customer complaints handling process. This will be going live with us very early in January 2022. The delay is not with us, it's with our partner that needed to do an upgrade to the system. This will allow us to streamline the way in which we take complaints, a more consistent approach to it, and more visibility of the data and insight to the types of complaints we get in, how we handle them, and the learning from that. So hopefully that we can improve the services to the public. I think members will agree the way in which we're trying to take this review forward is to enhance our services to the customer of Caerphilly and through the Internet of Things. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Kath?
Thanks, Chair. The next one, corporate review lead, is actually Marcus Lloyd, but he's almost totally lost his voice. He is on the call and will be able to answer questions by chat, I think he said, but Chris is going to cover this for him.
Thank you.
Good evening all. Frontline Services review has actually progressed pretty well under Marcus's direction. And opportunities we've experienced with commercial trading is good because the commercial trading and partnerships is something we do have experience of in our engineering projects group, network contracting services and housing WHQS. What we've realised is we need to expand us on this experience and formalise and strengthen the partnerships with our contractors, consultants and other local authorities to put us in the driving seat when it comes to delivering schemes and projects in the future. With regard to the second point on digital function, streamlining the way we deal with service requests will ensure that the service requests are addressed in a timely manner and we get the right person there at the first time to address the issue. So there's no multiple calls either. And we're hoping that staff will have the right tools and software with them so that they can raise and close SRs remotely to speed up the service delivery and obviously the feedback to the customer to know that the action has been taken. With the capacity within the front line, a lot of good work already exists across our frontline services. Good examples in winter maintenance where we use external contractors, park services, and refuse and cleansing, all to deliver the winter maintenance and the gritting routes at night. Similarly on flooding, everyone comes together when we need it on that as well. And obviously refuse and cleansing and parks, particularly shared drivers, to make sure that refuse collections are kept up to date and on time as well. So there's a lot of good work there and we need to explore further opportunities to strengthen the front line between all areas as well. And a lot of work in the fourth point, a lot of work's gone on into becoming a paperless front line. And we've noted through the work streams that we have that a lot of areas are having a lot of success and some are having more success than others. And what we aim to do on this one is bring those experiences together and learn from each other to try and take this paperless service to the next level. And I think we can achieve that by learning off each other because there are some good work already going on. And the last point, community engagement. It's at the heart of everything we're doing, especially on the front line, as you as councillors would know as well. The first 4 work streams I just talked about all aim to bring a better, more streamlined service and focus to the customers so we can address the matters that concern them the most. And that means addressing issues raised by the household survey, for example. So whether it was potholes, dog littering or weeds, it just means we can bring all the digital services and everything together to address and give a much quicker and faster response as well. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. And Rob Hartson's leading this one. I'll switch my camera off, it's probably distracting.
Hello, thank you. Hello, Chair. Good evening, members. Yes, just in relation to the support services review. So, as it indicates on the slide, we've undertaken a baseline analysis, which includes data gathering exercise and survey of heads of service with responsibilities for support services. We've also had feedback from staff engagement sessions, and we're planning to build upon those with some further focus groups with staff to inform perspectives of support services, how they are now, and how staff feel they should be in order to support service delivery in the best possible way. We have also added an additional work stream more recently just to explore what support service roles there are outside of the corporate centre. It's just that some of our, actually as a consequence of some of our analysis, we can see that perhaps there are some roles in other service areas that you wouldn't necessarily think of as being part of corporate services, but actually provide some sort of support service, and we want to understand the extent of that and how they can be best linked into other services that provide support to frontline service delivery. And finally, just to highlight that there is some ongoing work around automation, as members are probably aware. It's probably relevant to a number of work streams, and it is to this one as well. So clearly it links in with the sustainable financial planning review, with the example of invoice automation, which would fit nicely within the support services review, but actually is falling within the scope of the financial services review. So just highlighting some of the overlaps between some of these corporate reviews. And with that, I'll stop there, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
Back to Liz for the next one.
Thank you, Chair. Information, insight and intelligence. We are data rich within this organisation, but the way in which we use our data it is very sparse. We don't use it to the best effect. So we're working with our external partners within Microsoft and other third-party organisations to do a full review of all our data and look how we can join this up and make better use of our data so we are more informed in our decision making. This is slow to take off at the moment, but it will need a lot of resource from the IT team, and that is one of the reasons why we haven't completed the full review at this time. The Digital Solution Board is now working very, very well. This is made up of officers from across several sections of the organisation, and this is to do a consolidation of all of our systems in use within the organisation. We've actually invested heavily in E5 and Microsoft over the last 12 months, and there's a lot of tools within that product set that we can use better. We've got a number of solutions that overlap each other, and we need to be using them in a more consistent way. So we'll be looking as part of the work of the Digital Solutions Board to ensure that we actually use the systems to the full extent and use only the licenses that we require. As part of the Office 365 package, we've got a product called Power BI and Forms. These are both being rolled out within the organisation now, and the Power BI is actually starting to provide a dashboard on all the COVID response and data around COVID, around HR and all our sickness absence information, and also some of our schools, and we're developing attendance and other data that we'll be able to present to officers and members right across the authority. As we move forward with all these new tools, we need to understand the learning, and we also need to understand the training that's required as well. So we will be doing an analysis and an audit of the skills currently in existence within the organisation and what training and development we need going forward as part of the review. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Lynn.
Chair, sorry to butt in. We've had 5 out of 10. Would it be maybe appropriate to take some questions on the first 5 now?
Yes, I'm perfectly happy to do that. Sorry to stop you there, Kath, but we'll take some questions now.
Thanks, Chair. Things get lost otherwise, don't they?
Yes, okay. That's a good idea. Thank you, Councillor Mann. Councillor Whittle's had his hand up for some time. Councillor Whittle.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, it's virtually a similar question to what I asked the last time this issue was discussed, is when can we actually start to see a gradual return to work of members of staff? Because, we have to learn, I'm afraid, to live with COVID now. Many people are now on their third booster vaccination, myself included. But I'm worried about the fact that T Penather in particular is a very large building that has remained virtually empty for the last 2 years, but it has to be heated and cleaned and looked after, as any building would naturally have to be. And, we understand the reasons for the initial closure, and we all understand the reasons why we have to be careful with COVID. But now the Senate, I don't know what the decision is being made tonight, but they're debating whether people need passes to go into cinemas and public houses and the like. I know you've got passes to go into rugby matches, but if you can have 70,000 odd people in a rugby match for the next couple of Saturdays, I think people can start to begin a more gradual return to work. And the reason I say this is because I'm worried about younger members of staff. We've got staff members leaving and being replaced, and some of us as councillors have absolutely no idea who some senior members of staff are, or indeed what they even look like. And that for me is part of interaction of going to work. How does the 19 and the 20-year-old or 22-year-old just out of university learn from the more experienced member of staff who's been with us for 25, 30 years? And I, for one, I'm afraid, don't like it. And I tell you something else, Chair, customers don't like it either. And we've got to consider now bringing in staff, getting them back to work. We've got lots of members of staff, council staff.
They're back at work already, actually, Councillor Riddle. They're not out of work. They are working, even if they're not.
Yes, I know that, but there is no interaction. How are the team meetings going? Do we know? I don't. Nobody's told me how all the team meetings are going. And what's happening out there. And I'm hearing members of staff telling me this. So, it's very important. And I'm just beginning to wonder, because as I've asked questions about the computer before, there are many people that we represent don't even own a computer, and find great difficulty getting through on telephones. And I think we need to start thinking now of a gradual return to work. And I think personally, 4-day weeks and 9-day fortnights, a fantastic idea. That would help the staff as well. But we're going to need something, because the public won't put up with this forever. Got to learn to live with COVID. I have other questions on the investment programme, but I'll ask that later with your permission, Chair.
Yes, of course. And I suspect Lynn Donovan's showing her hand, so she'll want to reply.
So.
And the response will be the same as last time.
Well, that's rather sad, because I would hope the response would be an improvement from last time.
Work from home if you can. Council staff can, so they do. Lynn, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. You preempted my response. Absolutely understand your concerns, Councillor Whittle, and it is very difficult for the public looking in on us to understand why they see some services, some that you've mentioned, appearing to be back to normal in the way that they're functioning. But Welsh Government advice is very, very clear. Where people can work from home, they should be working from home, and that's what we are following. When you talk about people coming back into the office, as the Chair said, people are working wherever they may be based, they're working. We must not forget that we do have frontline services that aren't office-based and that have continued to function as normal throughout this process. If you've got individual concerns about specific teams or issues, Councillor Whittle, I'm more than happy for you to give me a call and I can discuss them through and try and work through the matters with the managers concerned. But I think it's important, that I do stress to members that we are working from home to follow Welsh guidance. Managers are supporting staff. They're continuing to have one-to-ones with their staff. They're continuing to have team meetings. Just because people are at home, it does not mean that the normal provisions of what we would have in place in an office for support shouldn't be in place. They should be there.
Thank you, Lynn. Councillor Mann, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think Councillor Morgan raised on this before I did. Maybe I can come in afterwards if it's I think they're too irrelevant, maybe.
Yes, of course. But before I call Councillor Morgan, then can I just ask Ed if he wants to add anything to Lynn Donovan's remarks?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Appreciate that. Just a couple of things to point out to members, if I may. Back prior to the summer holidays, we did take a decision as a corporate management team to increase the capacity at T Penalta. We were conscious that there were representations being made in terms of the well-being of certain members of staff. That increase has taken the numbers from around 100, which was on average. We set the capacity and threshold at around 200, so doubling that capacity. What we've actually seen since that time, Chair, is actually no increase in the number of staff coming into the building. In fact, in many cases, there's been a slight decrease. Now, that coincides with the numbers of COVID cases going sky high. I think people are voting with their feet. And although that capacity is available for the reasons that we've articulated, it is not being taken up currently, albeit it can be taken up by officers in conversations with their managers and heads of service to make those arrangements possible. The other thing I'd point out as well, Chair, in terms of the points raised by Councillor Whittle, you'll appreciate we've done quite a significant agile and staff survey to explore well-being and how well these particular arrangements are working. They've been in place for longer than I think any of us expected, and we've done a survey 12 months on from the first survey. Conscious Lynn is likely to talk about this in the Agile update, which is one of the future slides, but just to make the point that we'll be bringing all of that information in front of a members seminar in the next few weeks as well, so we'll get a chance to dig into that data in a bit more detail. What I can say is the responses from a significant number of staff are very positive, and this does seem to be settling into a little bit of a rhythm now. With the best will in the world, whilst that advice is if you can work from home, and the caseloads are still high, I think it's important that we don't take any of those unnecessary risks. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you for that. That was helpful. Liz Lucas has got her hand up. Please, Liz, do come in.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say as well, in addition to what Ed have said to you this evening, is that the customer services and the reception area within T Penalta is open. We've had very limited numbers of people entering the building. We've had no one ringing us for appointments. It is on an appointments basis, based in line with our risk assessment that we've undertaken, in line with Welsh Government guidance. But we've had very limited people coming in. Some weeks we've only had one person come in for an appointment, and absolutely nobody coming in as the general public to speak to staff. So just to make it clear that we are open for business.
That's helpful too. Thank you very much, Liz. Councillor Morgan, please.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank officers for the report. It's good to see that these reviews are underway, and it's always good to know that, that we are looking at what we are doing, and we are questioning ourselves and asking, can we do better? Can we make improvements? Can we improve things in the borough for residents? And therefore, I welcome this report. It's not coming fast enough, I'll say, the review, and things are not moving fast enough, but I fully understand the pressures officers are under due to COVID and the problems there. But I would like to ask about the walk-in services review, and perhaps it deals with other areas as well in the review. But I would like to ask if our libraries are being considered in a way that I think lots of councillors feel that our libraries are very, they're close to our hearts. They are at the centre of our communities. And with the walk-in services, we would like to see our libraries used to full effect, and we would like to increase the footfall going through libraries. We were just talking about digital improvements, all well and good, and as has been mentioned earlier, not everybody is computer literate, and these are ideal places for people to walk in the centre of the communities and get something done for them by an officer in the library. I'd also like to think that we would use our libraries has agile working areas for council officers, and even for council officers to have meetings within our libraries. I mean, I don't think you can't underestimate the benefits of officers driving around the borough and having meetings within the communities, because then they get to see firsthand the villages and the places where we are making decisions on all the time. Now, I know that many officers do travel around the borough, but there are also many officers who are not living within the borough. And I just think it would be, you know, we can't underestimate the benefits our libraries can bring to the council and our communities. So I don't know if Gareth could answer something on that.
Thank you. Gareth.
Yep, certainly, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Morgan, for that question. The reality is, our starting point really was the library service, because of those very points in terms of their location and the usage and the locality's expectations really around libraries. So that was our starting point. I think we just need to be mindful, though, that of course that the whole purpose of this is about asset rationalisation as well. So some of the data that we were capturing about pre-COVID usage becomes really important, doesn't it, in terms of thinking about what the footfall was, how the buildings were being used. But the points you raised are very much factor into the review. We're thinking about how we can create additional space within the library so it can be booked by different service areas in order to hold those meetings, to have those appointments, to hold surgeries or clinics, for instance, so that we maximise the resource we've got. And of course, we know that we've got some really good libraries, haven't we? We've got some really kind of state-of-the-art provision. So we want to maximise on that. That is critical going forward. So you can rest assured that is taking place. And of course that then fits with the second point you were making about our own staff being able to book space to be able to work within those libraries and the hubs and the other locations that we're thinking about. I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, thank you, Gareth.
Sue Richards, please. You'd like to come in?
Thank you, Chair. As members will know, I'm the head of service covering libraries, and thanks, Councillor Morgan, for your kind words on library provision. They are really key to our communities. What I would just like to clarify to members is, as a team, we are looking to access grant fundings for some really exciting projects in our libraries. My adult learning team as well is looking at grant funding to up the digital skills. We had members would be aware of something called Digital Fridays that happened historically when we had sessions, drop-in sessions in our libraries. So, you know, as a team, we're looking to maximise grant funding to be able to deliver and expand on the provision already offered within our libraries. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you for that. That was worthwhile. Thank you, Sue. Councillor Mann, please.
Thank you, Chair. Still on the question of libraries. I agree with Councillor Morgan that the more we can use the libraries, the better. The problem is that, I mean, in the instance of Llanbradach, and I know there's a couple of other areas, the library is grossly underused because it's just not open very often. And really, it's apart from the community centre and the schools, it's the only sort of council-owned facilities in the village, and the library is obviously the one that has the potential for walk-in services. And I think part of the review of how we use libraries should actually be reviewing when they're open and when they're available to people, because there are lots of people I know who go elsewhere because they just can't get to their local library when they want to. So I think that needs to be borne in mind. Could I just touch on something that Liz Lucas said as well, Chair? I wasn't aware that Tipperastra was actually open to the public. Maybe I should have been, but I don't know how we've publicised this. But I would have thought that the reason why the turnout has been so sparse is that maybe a lot of other people don't know. How have we actually publicised this? Again, if it's all online, etc., the very people who would want to use that building because they're not connected digitally wouldn't actually know that the place is open. I mean, it used to be very well used for people calling in at one time, as we all know. So really, I think we need to get that message out to people that the place is there for those who need to call in for whatever reason.
Good point, Councillor Mann, and perhaps Liz can respond to it. But Sue wants to come back first, I think.
Just first on the libraries question, Chair. You're right, Councillor Mann, some of our libraries are closed for certain days of the week. And I think what we're looking at, certainly within the walk-in services review, but also from my perspective, is looking at how we can use that for the benefit of our communities. One of the things we're looking at is my employment teams having sessions on the days that they're closed. So we are certainly, I can offer you assurance, that is within the mix of the conversations that are going on. Because obviously, you know, a building empty, you might as well maximise that building. So you've got my assurance that is being looked at.
And thank you, Sue. There are plenty of opportunities to use ours when it's closed, unfortunately.
Thank you for that, Sue. Thank you for coming back, Liz.
That's okay, thank you, Chair. Yes, there has been some publicity around the fact that T Penalty is open. It is open in line with our risk assessment that's been carried out for appointments only. But as you know, a large number of our customers have gone online and now undertake the task they would normally visit a customer services for online. None of our service areas have asked us to book appointments for people. All of our blue badge assessments is now over the telephone or online. So there are limited requirements for the public to come into the building, but we are here to serve the public if they so wish to make an appointment with us.
Thank you, Liz. Councillor Cuss, please.
Thanks, Chair. Is going on what Councillor Whittle was saying about certain services that are not open to the public. Now, obviously, Liz just touched upon the digital world that we live in and about doing things online rather than going into our council buildings, which is perfectly fine. But there are services that, you know, and I've had abuse from some residents because they're absolutely furious by the council's reasoning about certain services that are not opening up. Things like permits for amenity sites. You know, there is absolutely no facility for a member of the public to actually get a permit for an amenity site. And we've had amenity sites open for several months now. So I don't understand why the council hasn't got a telephone system, online system where they can actually get these things, because, you know, I'm sure members have had complaints about fly tipping and things like that. You know, that's just an example of a service that could easily be up and running without going into a centre, really. So, you know, those are the types of things that I would like addressed out of this review as well, because I think we need to start opening things up now and getting these services underway, albeit in a different way, but let's just get it done.
Thank you, Councillor Cuss. Ed, please.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just to reference Councillor Cuss's point, I know he's in discussions with the Corporate Director for Economy and Environment on this specific issue. I think it's just worth reminding members that where we have made decisions to either pause or reduce the levels of service, it's largely as a result of us having to target the resources that we've got at critical services and our current resource base being stretched. So, you know, we are in the middle of a pandemic. We are doing our best to maintain and turn all of those services back on, but you'll also appreciate that there are things that are difficult. Whilst I also accept that when you're getting pressure as members in the community, we as officers need to revisit those things. So I'm sure, Councillor Cuss, those discussions will continue. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Ed. Councillor Adams, please.
Thank you, Chair. This is going back to the libraries issue. It was a question that I thought up in the pre-meeting when I knew that Councillor Morgan was going to mention libraries. Some of it has already been covered by the answers that we've had from officers, but I was one of those councillors, and I hope all of us are using our libraries in our own location as much as possible. And I've been a good visitor, I hope, to Blackwood for quite a few months now. But every time I go in, having made an appointment, and it only takes me 2 minutes in the car to actually get up there very quickly to match that appointment, I'm more often the only browser looking for a couple of books, unfortunately. So I just wonder what kind of footfall that we are able to record for all of our libraries, especially some of the ones like Blackwood, which are open just about all week. 5 days a week and half days on a Saturday. Have we got the kind of footfall numbers, Sue, that would encourage us to be able to start opening them up a little bit more and a bit easier? Thanks.
Thank you. Sue, please.
Thanks, Chair. Well, footfall is down, councillors, you know, and we're looking at the risk assessment at the moment to open our libraries to non-pre-bookable appointments, so people can walk through the door. So we're looking at that risk assessment at the moment. What I will say to members, our offer has changed. So we have promoted, and during lockdown, our digital uptake has gone up by about 100%. So people are looking at accessing books online. We've also got a click and collect. So there's a brochure and library catalogue online. People go, they choose a book, they pick that book, and then they just go to the library and collect it. So I suppose footfall is down, which is disappointing, but what we've got to take into account is the wide breadth of other offers that weren't previously available. You know, there is actually, our library manager came to our education senior management team this morning with a plan of engagement with schools and our communities to see how we can start bringing more people through the door. So that plan is working. We're hoping that over the next month, 6 weeks, as long as numbers start coming down with COVID, that we can start having free access to our libraries. But the aim is to get more people through the door, Councillor. You're exactly right. Thank you for that.
Yes, because when you go into the library, if there are other people looking about, it's always giving you confidence that it's worth visiting there. And as long as you're doing it safely and proper social distancing, you can. It's a place where you can meet and ask questions of what your experiences are. I like to be able to go in and pick up a book and turn the pages, because aren't you also fed up of looking at things online instead of feeling that book and turning the pages?
Yeah, I will say, councillors, I think there are a lot of people within our communities that would have moved more to an online offer, that are quite pleased with seeing the catalogue online, seeing what we can offer, and then just knocking on the door and picking up their bags ready. That has attracted a lot of new users to our libraries as well. So there's positive and negatives. Yeah, but the aim of the team is to get a lot more people through the door. You're right.
Thank you, Sue.
Thank you. Councillor Mann, is your hand up a new hand?
Yeah, it is, Jay. And on the library thing, I thought there was quite a strict limit on how many people could be in the library, maybe 1 or 2 people. So I wasn't surprised when Councillor Adams said he didn't see many people in there, because they're not allowed in at the same time.
It's more than 2 at a time. They're just not ringing up to make an appointment.
Sue, please.
Just to clarify, Councillor Mann, it depends very much on the risk assessment, which will very much depend on the size of the site. So some sites are smaller, there will be 1 person access, the larger site would allow more. So it's very much dependent on the risk assessment. A lot of our neighbouring authorities have moved to open access, so we're hoping we can get there within the very near future. That will be our aim.
Thank you for that. Councillor Whittle, please.
Just a quick question for you, Chair, to Sue Richards. Thank you for that info. It sounds like good news, but there's a huge hint for me of bad news as well, because I'm frightened that if more and more people are put off going to the libraries, there will come a point when people will say, well, there's no point in having them because they're lovely buildings that are not being used. You know, everybody goes shopping every week. I mean, I do food shopping every week. I certainly don't do clothes shopping at all. You know, I get really panicky. This is why I said earlier, I sometimes think now we have to learn to live with COVID. It's not going away in any of our lifetimes, I fear. And I just think we should be very careful about what we're doing as a local authority, because I love the idea that there's new ideas and I can't wait to hear them, but I'm frightened that people are being pushed away and I get really panicky. The last thing in the world we want is to lose our library facilities, that would be devastating. Not everybody uses the library anyway, but for those who do, they were and still can be a lifeline, and save them a lot of money on buying books, because I've just bought 3 or 4 books for Christmas presents, and trust me, the price of some of them is silly money. And I look forward to hearing the new ideas that we can get people to use our libraries, for fear of losing them in the future. Whilst we're all here, next May there's going to be another election. We don't know who's going to be elected, and they may come in with different ideas, heaven forbid.
Thank you, Councillor Whittle. Sue, please.
Just to clarify, the walk-in services review will look at all the usage of the library, and the aim of that review is to maximise those buildings. So, Councillor Cass, I think, mentioned, or Councillor Mann, about the days they were empty. So the aim is to maximise the usage. And our libraries are a lot more than just books. As you said, we've got a lot of community groups within those buildings. Unfortunately, they are mostly in the older age range, which are quite fearful about returning. We've got a trial on in Risca and Caerphilly Library, where we're bringing some of those community groups back, and confidence is rising. So, our community groups are returning, so we're pretty confident we can start rolling that out across our sites. So they're a lot more than books. They're community venues, absolutely, and they are very key to the future of within our walk-in services review.
Lovely. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Can we go back to Kath Peters then to resume the slideshow? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Next one is on flexible or agile working. I think Lynn is covering this for Marcus, who's lost his voice.
Hi, Lynn. Thank you.
Sorry, Chair. I thought you were taking those things one at a time.
What things?
The first 5.
All right. Are you okay, Councillor Mann, for us to take the next 5 now, please?
Well, I wanted to make a point on the remote contract review. I thought you were taking them, say, each item at a time.
I'm sorry, Lynn. Before we come to you, sorry, Lynn. Councillor Mann, what else did you want to make?
Apologies, I was obviously under misapprehension. Yeah, it's the it's the remote contact. Can't even speak now, Chair, which is welcome for you. It's the remote contact review. One thing that concerns me is the way Lindsay mentioned how many people are working out of the office, which we all know about. It's actually getting hold of those people. Now, my understanding is that dare I say that the technology to divert the office calls onto, say, somebody's mobile is not always working perfectly. And if it does go to the mobile and that's not answered, well, end of story. I mean, Liz knows how pleased I am with the digital services lately. I tried to get 4 people, I think, last week. I ended up going to the switchboard, which I don't like doing. That lady was working from home, so she said, well, I'm limited as to who I can see or what I can see, because I'm obviously not in the office. And you can waste a lot of time on just trying to get hold of people, and there are times when you need to speak to someone, not just send an email. And this is quite a frequent complaint I get from certainly some of my group, that they're spending a long time trying to get a hold of people, and well, without success really. So I mean, we do need to have a look at how this system is, the phone system is working, and what people's experiences are.
Thank you, Councillor Mann. Does
thank you,
Liz
Chair.
just want to come back? Oh, sorry,
Yes.
Ed.
Yes,
please.
thank you. Oh.
Sorry, Ed first, please. Sorry.
Yeah, I suspect Liz and I will probably both be saying the same thing. I think, Councillor Mann, that's the reason why we're running the remote services review. Liz mentioned that there's going to be an overhaul of the telephony system. We're conscious that we moved to new working arrangements almost overnight. And I think it's incumbent on us as officers to try and address some of the issues that you've raised. It's not always about the technology, and that's something that we are in dialogue with you and other group leaders on at the moment. So hopefully we'll be able to improve the situation for you in the near future.
Thank you, Ed. Liz, did you want to add anything?
No, I just want to reinforce what Ed have just said. Actually, there will be a review of the telephony system and the way in which we work. But if somebody chooses not to answer their phone, I'm awful sorry, I can't do anything, never mind what technology we've got. So, but hopefully we will be able to address that, and more learning and more training will make people more aware of the importance of answering that telephone, or turning off a divert and putting a divert back on. That isn't the problems we've got at the moment.
Okay, thank you for that, Liz.
Okay, thank you, Liz. Well, one very quick one, Chair. On support services, I was just wondering who the focus groups were. It mentions focus group sessions.
They'll be made up of staff, Chair, Councillor. They'll be drawn from staff. We had staff engagement sessions prior to COVID, and had staff feedback as a consequence of arising from those sessions, and we want to develop that a bit further, so we'll use that to inform the cross-section of staff that we get onto these groups.
Thank you, Rob.
Okay, thanks, Rob. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Does any member have any other questions on the first 5 slides before we go to Lynn Donovan, please? No? Okay. Thank you. Lynn, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. As Kath has said, Marcus is the lead for the flexible working review, but unfortunately he's not got much of a voice, so I'll give the update.
Thank you.
So we've been able to collect data on matters regarding staff, locations and equipment. That's all now being analysed and compared with each other, so we can look where we have any gaps in equipment, for example. Heads of service have completed an exercise where roles within each of these services have been categorised, so we can understand how services can potentially operate in the future, whether that be agile, at home, in the office, for example. And that then will be analysed further with the other information that I just mentioned. I've mentioned to members before that we have a number of HR policies that now need to be updated, and I've had those discussions with the trade unions. We've agreed the policies, and we will be moving on with those very shortly. Some are already underway. We've already had a trial where we're replacing some of the desktop IT equipment with laptops and docking stations, which will mean at the time when we are able to work in a more agile way, and when Welsh Government restrictions are lifted, staff won't have to be associated with a fixed desk where they work with a laptop and a docking station. They'll be able to work anywhere. And we've also completed the work on the ground floor in Penalta House. For those members that have been into Penalta for meetings recently, and I know some have for council, for example, you may have seen the work that's been undertaken down there, and also that the restaurant that's down there has been changed, and the area around there to make that more supportive for agile working as well. If I may, Chair, as well, just to mention to members, the seminar that's been arranged for the 29th of November for you all, we'll give you all an update on the staff survey, but it will also touch on agile working as well, because some of the matters within the survey cover them both. So there'll be more information for members then. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Thanks very much. Kath, please. Thank you.
Next review is Steve.
Hi, Steve.
Okay, thank you, Chair. In terms of the budget strategy, I've already touched on this, but I will just quickly repeat what I said. We won't get the settlement details until the 21st of December. We are preparing for that. We're working with finance managers and heads of service to identify what inescapable cost pressures are in the system, so we can be prepared for when the settlement comes. And as I mentioned earlier, we will present draft budget proposals to Cabinet on the 19th of January, and there will be then a consultation period for a few weeks before we take the final proposals to Cabinet on the 23rd of February and then into Council on the 24th. And as we mentioned earlier, as part of that process, there will be a joint scrutiny committee on the 24th of January. Moving on to opportunities for greater returns on investments. We have made some good progress on that in the current financial year. We've invested around 21 million now in longer term investments. And just to give you some comparators, we're currently achieving an overall return on investments of 0.7%. Now that might not sound like much, but if you compare that to what the average is across Wales, it's 0.25%. So we're doing very well actually in terms of our returns on investments currently. And just to reassure members, we are working closely with our Treasury advisors, Arlene Close, to look at opportunities for further medium to longer term investments to improve our returns moving forward. Moving on to the point about linking the transformation programme to the MTFP, work is underway to do that. We're looking to identify measurable outcomes from the transformation programme, and this will include potential cashable savings to report the MTFP moving forward, recognising, identifying and evidencing areas where we're achieving productivity gains as a result of the changes, and also instances of cost avoidance through the transformation programme. And as I've said on many occasions, you all know that the transformation programme will be a key driver in helping us maintain our financial resilience in the future. Moving on to the review of the financial regulations, again, work is underway to ensure that the financial regulations are fit for purpose, and that also we have appropriate governance arrangements in place to support delivery of the transformation programme. There's been widespread engagement with a number of stakeholders, and proposed changes will be presented to the Corporate Governance Panel in December. We'll then prepare a report for the Governance and Audit Committee in January before we bring details of proposed changes through to Council, probably in May next year. And finally, Rob mentioned this one earlier about the streamlining of internal invoices. We have undertaken a detailed mapping exercise. Even I was surprised by the number of transactions that are taking place internally. So we will be looking to rationalise that wherever we can, and only do internal invoicing where it is required to support production of the accounts, etc. And what we will do is where the internal invoicing is required, we will look at opportunities to automate the process and gain efficiency through that as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that, Steve.
Workforce Development Chair for Lynn.
Yes, Lynn.
Thank you, Chair. Members will recall the Workforce Development Strategy and the Employee Wellbeing Strategy being considered at a meeting at the end of September. Cabinet agreed both strategies the following day. So the work starts for us now, Chair, in delivering on the actions within the strategy, all of which are really important for the Council going forward. Members will also recall the approval of £168,000 at Council for staff for a learning and development team to support the workforce development function. The recruitment for those posts has commenced, so that will start to look at the centralising and pulling together of all the learning and development opportunities across the Council, so that we can look at how we benefit more from them, how we share the learning, and how we can improve on that. That's it, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn.
Chair volunteering in the community partnerships is with Sue.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kath. Okay, members will be aware that the employee volunteering scheme has been launched, approved and launched, and rolled out across our organisation. We're actually working with Garvo. We're looking at working with our community groups and also our staff and managers to get the opportunity. So this isn't just about the staff coming forward to volunteer. What we need to ensure is that the volunteering opportunities are on the Volunteering Wales website, and that's really key that we target the right areas. You know, one that's coming to fruition at the moment is our community centres and any vacancies on those. So we're working with Garvo to work out a job description, because any role needs to be on the Volunteering Wales website for our staff to access. So really exciting future for that scheme. Community group mapping, what that actually means, members will be aware of a website run by the WLGA called Dewis. It's a website that promotes all the wellbeing sites and opportunities for our communities. Now that has been around for many, many years. But what it hasn't been is there hasn't been a clear ownership for it within Caerphilly. I think each directorate has sort of covered their own areas, but with the development of the Caerphilly Cares team, they've taken ownership of the Caerphilly area of their website, working with community groups, ensuring that all the opportunities support offered gets mapped and is clear on that website. So that's really making a difference. What they're also doing in the Caerphilly Cares is supporting newly established groups, also helping established groups develop and progress onto a different role within our communities. You know, the members in the Risker area, the Risker community, the COVID support group has just gone leaps and bounds at what they've offered and the support that they're delivering at the minute. I mentioned Caerphilly Cares. They've supported over 200 people so far. The income maximisation arm of the Caerphilly Cares as currently, I've had an update actually today, but over £1.5 million in additional benefits to our most vulnerable within our communities. So that's a really success story and absolutely well valued. You know, I've at the recent meeting we've had thank you letters. It's really well valued within our communities. And the final point on there is the launch of the Community Empowerment Fund. The first round of applications closed on the 31st of October. The team are pulling together what's come in to date, looking at reviewing those applications and getting those reviewed and support offered to our communities. So a lot happening within this work stream and a lot of success within this work stream as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sue.
Chair, the final of the 10 corporate reviews decision making is with Rob Tranter.
Thank you.
Yes, good evening members, good evening Chair. Yeah, so the decision-making review, before I start, my thanks to Victoria. I'm not sure whether she's had her baby yet, but she's worked very hard on this review with me, which is great. So we've done some analysis of the 21 other principal councils in Wales. We've been assisted in that process by the WLGAs, which has been very helpful. We're going to look at 4 councils in more depth, and then we will look to bring an options paper to council, which will weigh up the sort of pros and the cons. There's nothing too surprising, frankly, about the work that we've done thus far. That's not that surprising, really, in that all councils have to do things in certain ways, as members are aware. So there isn't that much difference, frankly, between what we do and what our neighbouring authorities do also. But there are some differences, and we will bring a paper for members to consider. There's been a staff group as part of this process, which has been quite interesting, and we've updated some of our information on decision-making processes for members of staff who need a little help in that process. So it's going along well. It's quite opportune that we have a new council, of course, after May's elections, and we will look to put in place some of these changes if council decides that's the way it wants to go. So thank you very much, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Chair, that's the end of the 10 reviews. I'm not sure if you wanted to take questions on the second set of 5 now before I continue.
I will, yes, thank you, Kath. Members, are there any questions on the second set of slides we've just seen, please? Councillor Mann.
Thanks, Chair. On investments, please hear what Steve said about the return. What I wondered, I don't know whether Steve can answer me now, it's the sort of areas that we're investing in. Obviously, with COP going on in Glasgow, there's been a lot of focus on things like fossil fuels and in pension investments in fossil fuels, for example. And I'm just wondering whether or not some of this improvement is relying on maybe the type of investment that not everyone would be very happy with. I'll put it that way, Chair.
Thank you. Steve, please.
Yeah, happy to provide some reassurances there, Chair. We're mindful of making ethical investments, and we work closely with Alan Close on that. Just to give you a bit of an update, Councillor Mann, the new investments are in things like the CCLA Property Fund, which I know you're familiar with. Yeah. We're also investing in something called the Fundamentum REIT, which is a provider of supported living accommodation. And we are putting some money into equities, but just to reassure you again, as I said, that you know, ethical investments are at the forefront of what we're doing.
Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. We were grappling with, well, what is known as SRI, isn't it? Social Responsible Investments in Gwent Pension Fund a few years ago, before someone got chucked out of the board. It's I'm pleased to hear that is actually being done. On the internal invoicing you mentioned, I mean, I've heard stories about invoices passing through half a dozen pair of hands before they finally get to be paid. Is that the sort of thing you're looking at, I imagine, is it?
Yeah, it's about streamlining that process. A lot of it is automated anyway, but it does require, you know, some quite a bit of manual intervention still. But for me as well, I think a lot of this is the legacy. If you cast your minds back to the days of CCT, when we were moving charges around the organisation because certain services had to demonstrate statutory rates of return on the services they were providing, etc. So I think a lot of it is legacy issues, and like I said, we're looking at streamlining the process as much as we can. And where these internal recharges are not required, then you know, I'm going to be recommending that we do remove them.
Thank you, Steve. Could I have one more, Chair, please?
Yes, one more.
Yeah, it's the I think it was Sue who mentioned the fact that we finally got someone who has taken responsibility for the DEWIS programme. It's a very useful scheme which has been put to very good effect in lots of places. I mean, I asked questions a few years ago about this, and everyone seemed to be thinking it was somebody else's job to do it. So it's good to hear that somebody is actually taking responsibility for it at long last. And obviously the other one, which I'm sure is good news for most of us, is the fact that we are working on the income maximisation and the and enabling people to claim what they're entitled to. I think on the last one that you mentioned, Sue, the community empowerment, I think maybe a few members may need a bit of a reminder on that one and the processes, and you know how you wade through the process, because I think it's a bit more complicated than some people were anticipating. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Mann. And I hope Sue's noted your comments. Thank you. Councillor Morgan, please.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Given the agenda item 8, which is the corporate services budget monitoring, and the considerable issues we've seen with a lack of capacity within the organisation, I'm wondering if the workforce development review should be widened to be a workforce development, retention and recruitment review.
Okay, that's an interesting point. Thank you. Would Ed like to come back on that, please? Or Lynn? Yes, Lynn, please.
Thank you, Chair. One of the actions within the workforce development plan is about addressing some of the recruitment issues that we've got within the council, which, as we all know, seem to be widening at the moment. So we are doing some work to address those with heads of service, in particular looking at how we can bring people into the organisation, in particular young people, and give people a further understanding of what we do in the council, so how we grow our own, and we look at our succession planning there. We're also, one of the actions within the strategy is around workforce planning as well. So meetings have already started to take place with heads of service to look at their future issues, whether they be sort of very near future or at a later date, and we're working towards those with heads of service. Always very conscious of things changing though, so not looking constantly reviewing and just not looking to do something and not changing it. We will constantly review the situation and adapt to what's going on in the environment. So for example, with the pandemic, we couldn't have foreseen that. We've adapted well and we will continue to do those such things. So I'm not sure if that helps you, Councillor Morgan, and what you were looking for.
I mean, it does to some extent, but you know, we have got issues with a lack of capacity. I know that there are certain areas where we are finding it difficult recruitment. I understand that the private sector, especially with such things as I suppose engineering and such like, where the private sector is always going to outbid us when it comes to the wages that we can offer. But of course we can offer development and you know, there's a great deal more security, and I just think that the organisation, you know, it needs that capacity, and you know, we are gonna you know, things are going to get difficult if we don't get that capacity in the organisation. Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you, Councillor Morgan. Ed, please.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, Councillor Morgan. We are having some challenges at the moment in particular disciplines. I think it's right to say we're not the only local authority or sector across the UK that are struggling in certain disciplines. Just to put members' minds at rest, although this is a significant challenge for us, Cabinet have asked corporate management team to go away and have a think about how we might change our approaches to recruitment, selection, and all that goes with it to try and address those issues. You mentioned that, you know, we may lose staff to the private sector. I think there's also a real danger that as local authorities around us have shortages in particular disciplines, we end up competing with each other for those resources, and that's not good for anyone. So I think there's a job of work for us to do here as a corporate management team. I think there's also a job of work here for the chief execs and perhaps wider local authorities across the region to do together, so that we make sure we're able to best support each other in some of these disciplines that are fundamental, some of the things we're trying to deliver. So it is a real issue for us. And you rightly picked up in the financial report that, you know, some of the vacancies we're carrying are down to those challenges. So we've got to think differently about this. We've got to approach it with some fresh thinking, and you know, it's a real challenge for us, but one that no doubt we'll overcome in due course. Okay. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you, Ed. Are there any other questions on the second tranche of slides, please, before we move on?
Just one, Chair. I noticed on a couple of reviews it mentioned good progress. A lot of them didn't mention anything. I'm just running the timescale of some of these because they do seem to be going on a bit.
Thank you for that. Let's go back to Kath Peters. Perhaps you can. Oh, sorry, Ed wants to answer that first. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, Chair. With the best will in the world, these are 10 whole authority transformation programmes. They are multi-annual transformation programmes, and there are significant interdependencies between those corporate reviews. So this is not going to be done in the next few months. It has been possible to progress some of those reviews more quickly than others. Sue gave you some very good insight into how far we've got with corporate volunteering, for example. There are others that will be more difficult, more complicated, and will take more time. I think when we get together with you at the members seminar, we'll probably be in a position where once again we'll share with you the dashboards attached to all of these reviews, and that'll give you a bit more insight then into the timescales attached. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Ed.
Thanks, Ed. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Kath Peters then, please.
Thanks, Chair. I'll move on with the rest of the presentation. So the slide there is just reminding that we've got significant audit workers' involvement in the corporate review programme, and we're meeting with them regularly 6 monthly, and they are taking a sort of critical friend role and providing oversight and giving us some insight into work going on in other authorities and pointing us to sources of advice, etc. They've got some specific work on at the moment, building on last year's workforce development work, which they looked at, and this year they're looking at Springing Forward as their project. It's a national project where they are looking at how authorities are recovering from the pandemic, and they've got 2 focus areas, workforce planning, which is obviously connected to one of our reviews, and now strategic management of building assets, and we've several of us have been in a focus group with them this afternoon, so they are looking at the sort of wider transformation across the council. Just taking you to the next part of the report with me. So one of the things that we brought to bring to your attention is that we are looking at improving some of the governance around transformation. So that isn't just the corporate reviews and the service reviews, which are ongoing, but the commercial investment strategy, wellbeing and place shaping framework as well. So there's some work going on at the moment to revise the terms of reference for the Team Caerphilly programme board and all of the arrangements around transformation. I think the intention is they will be coming back to council in early 2022 with the aim to consolidate a number of existing boards and to put some streamlining work in place on transformation in this wider sense, not just corporate reviews. And then obviously the report, this is significant information in the report on the place shaping framework, and you'll see the report has got several pages which are giving you updates on a number of projects, some which have already been approved and some in the planning stages as well. I'm going to probably ask Ed and Sue to come in and sort of illustrate this. We've just got one slide which is just bringing together some of the photographs of some of the ongoing work, and obviously you will have seen as members the current social media push around some of that work as well. But I'll bring in Sue and Ed if they wanted to expand on that.
Thank you, Kath. Ed and Sue, please.
Yeah, conscious of time, Chair. There's an awful lot of detail in this particular part of the report, and I'm also conscious that it cuts across all 6 wellbeing objectives, and I'm the only corporate director here this evening, so I'll do my best to kind of bring some of this to life. For me, the report kind of it breaks down the progress that we've made in terms of the works completed, the work's underway, and some of the exciting new stuff that's coming our way. So taking the first of those in terms of the works completed, members, you'll have seen some of the early images of the Oakdale running track, the new 3G pitches at Lewis Pengham, Ysgol Gyfun Cwmrymni and St Kenneth, and also the 11 starter units that have now been let at TD. I know I said it was works completed. I'm going to focus in on the Welsh Housing Quality Standard, WHQS. I think it's probably fair to say that that is now 99 point something complete. And if Dave Street was here, he would suggest it was remiss of me not to suggest we were very nearly there. So I'm squeezing that one into nearly complete. In terms of the works that are currently underway, set out in 5.7, you'll all have seen the press and insight into the Haverdrannus works that are going on currently. You'll have seen some great stuff lately around Cwmcarn Forest Drive and the recent decision at planning as well around Chartist Gardens. In terms of other things that are very, very nearly coming to completion, the Soonok Hockey Hub is within touching distance. The work to develop a 3G pitch up at Idris Davis is in touching distance of completing. And of course, in terms of the other projects that are about to begin, we've got a number of really exciting business cases making their way through the system. Some of those you'll be very much aware of around Trinity Fields and Ysgol Gymraeg Cwm Gwyddon. But more recently, Cabinet have also given approval for us to consult around the CVL, or Centre for Vulnerable Learners, I should say, rather than shortening that, the new school build at Placerfelyn, and indeed the new primary school at Lancaig and Llanfabon. And very recently, Cabinet also considered a business case on the respite centres at Pontarfraith. Again, one of the images on the screen in front of you, top left, is an artist's impression of what those will look like. So I think that's about all I want to say on this, Chair. There's a lot of detail in this section of the report. I'll do my best to answer any questions that I get on the wide range of projects that are flushing through the Wellbeing and Place Shaping programme. And of course, members, we'll keep you updated as things progress as well. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Ed. Councillor Whittle, please.
Did you call me, Chair? Sorry.
Yes, please.
I do apologise, misheard you. Yeah, I don't want to spoil the party, but it's just a minor point that Councillor John Scriven and I went to a council house yesterday, and we found an original 1950s toilet cistern, which still hasn't been done, but we've taken that up with the appropriate officer, so it's one that's probably just has slipped through, so no worries there. But it looked quite antique, actually, probably worth a bit of money now anyway. I wanted to ask though, Chair, on the Trinity Fields expansion, I'm a member of the Facebook page of Ystrad Mynach and area, and there's 9,000 residents on that Facebook page. It's an interesting Facebook page, if I may use that term, and it's quite clear that what is happening with Welsh Water and the works that they need to do to prevent the sewerage getting into the pitch that we want to establish. That's just not working. And I'm wondering what is happening with that £12 million project, because it's a big project. And personally, I believe that there is scope for another Trinity Field school in another site. And I think that it's very important that we could have 2 Trinity Field type schools. It's an absolute centre of excellence. We all know that. But let's be honest, the area that they're looking at is not suitable, in my opinion, to expand the school. And certainly the replacement field is not up to standard. It never will be up to standard. Every time we have rain, there's raw sewer, and you can't have children and the other people playing amidst raw sewerage. It's not on. Why doesn't somebody please make a decision on this, please?
Thank you, Councillor Whittle. Ed, would you like to respond?
Yeah, of course. Someone has made a decision on this. Cabinet approved the full business case back in April. But in terms of where we are at the moment, you'll also appreciate, because of the issues in terms of sewage down at Soonok, Cabinet have taken the decision to pause that development to see if Welsh Water can remediate the issues at the Soonok field. I take your point entirely in terms of it not being acceptable for children to play in and around raw sewage. I take that a step further. That is a field or a grassed area currently attached to one of our leisure centres and our local schools. It's not acceptable to us that those manholes are being breached in terms of their current usage, never mind future usage. So when we reported the recent surcharge to Welsh Water, I think it was back the period of inclement weather, one before last, they've responded to me and said that they've been dispatched to investigate further. They've communicated to me that they're about to have some further site meetings to take forward some further works to try and address this, bearing in mind they thought they had addressed it back in the summer. Clearly that isn't the case. I'm expecting an update from them, Councillor Whittle, on the 12th of November, which sets out what their next steps will be. That's where we are at the moment, depending on what that response from Welsh Water ends up being and how close they are to sorting out that issue. I don't know at this stage, but once I get that information, I'll be in a position where I can advise. Thanks, Chair.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mann, please.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to suggest that Lindsay alerts Sim Faggins to the toilet. But on a more serious note, Chair, the Trinity Fields, I think I wonder whether Welsh Water have the capacity, the finance, whatever, to actually sort that one, because there are regular reports of issues. I probably don't dip into the Facebook site as much as Lindsay does, but I dip into enough to know that there are quite frequent reports of issues there. And when you look at, for example, I'm sure most of us have been aware of the sort of high-profile news reporting on the very poor condition of the River Wye recently. When Welsh Water got those sort of pressures on them, I'm wondering where this particular scheme would rank in their priorities. And I frequently get complaints about various items which should be in the sewers appearing in the river in my village, and it's down to this horrible system of combined sewerage and outfall, where, as we all know, the sewers just discharge in periods of inclement weather, and we all know the inclement weather is getting worse and more frequent as time goes on. So I would have very great doubts that Welsh Water can guarantee us or anyone else a permanent solution to the issues there, and then sadly in a lot of other places as well.
Thank you, Councillor Mann. Ed, please.
Yeah, just a couple of bits more useful information potentially. I don't think Welsh Water have got a choice. This has been reported to Natural Resources Wales. They were facing some enforcement action prior to the remedial action that took place towards the back end of spring, early summer. They are under the spotlight in terms of getting this resolved. What they've done already is to put some telemetry into that sewer. They need to do that so that they can monitor the sewer levels. When they get that data over a particular period, it allows them to make adjustments in terms of the amount of through flow in that particular sewer. They can't do that without the data. They're gathering the data. My guess would be if that sewer currently is over capacity, there may be some work they can do to release that flow a little bit and try and avoid those things happening in the future. But I don't think it's a case of them not having the wherewithal to do this. There will be an expectation that they sort this out. And I know our local MS is also in touch with Natural Resources Wales to make sure that this gets resolved. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Ed.
I'll come back a moment, Chair. I hope that NRW are more effective in this case than they have been in some of the other cases that I've been involved with recently. And really, you know, it's just it's not. I understand. You know, Ed has been exploring various things, but more than 10 years ago, with a fairly small development again in Llanbadarch. The only way they were allowed to develop that was to build a holding tank into the development and release the contents of that whilst the sewer wasn't, whilst it was in a state to actually take it. Now, we're getting more and more of this weather, and I just don't know whether we can get guarantees. And I'm sorry, I have a fairly jaundiced view of the way NRW work, more often than not.
Thank you, Councillor Mann. I'm tempted not to invite Ed to come back because this is going to be a double match for the rest of the night, and life's too short. Ed, go ahead.
Chair, I was actually going to say, just for the record, the Trinity Field development is on pause. I'm not going to surmise what Welsh Water can or can't do. It's not my area of expertise, but I'm also conscious this particular section is designed to showcase with members a huge number of matters of progress in terms of capital investment. So I don't want to focus the entire discussion on Trinity Fields. That's on pause. So if it's okay with you, Chair, perhaps we can see if we can answer any other questions that members have got. And Councillor Mann and I will continue this, no doubt, offline.
I take that on board, Chair.
Thank you both. Are there any more questions before we go back to Kath to sum up, please? Kath Peters, please.
Thanks, Chair. Final few slides just to take you through the remainder of the report. Commercial investment strategy update was adopted in December last year as a strategy and put together with a high-level action plan. Some work is inevitably being delayed because of the pandemic. However, there is some good progress that has happened. There's a report going to Cabinet tomorrow recommending an extension until December next year. It was always intended to be a short-term review process because this is the first time we've embarked on this type of work. As I said, that report's going forward tomorrow. Some headlines from the destination managers have developed 5-year business plans to hopefully aimed at reducing the subsidy in that service. Some of the things around a new marketing strategy and those things are being taken forward. Some training and development sessions on commercial skills rolling out with particular services and those services which are closest to commercialisation, infrastructure being one of them. Also some leadership training to take place here early in 2022 and some hackathons to develop commercial ideas are planned with catering and destination managers as well. The License to Innovate scheme launched over the last few weeks. I forget the exact date, but very, very recently is launched with staff. And that, or beginning of November, sorry, apologies, is on the slide, but that is aimed at supporting staff to develop their commercial ideas and also innovation ideas across the council as well. So it's building on some pilot work which took place with funding, which, just to give you a flavour of some of the things that have been developed, an ice cream parlour, I can't pronounce the Italian word, at the Toyn Visitor Centre Cafe, and also it's actually funding the training which I mentioned, and a feasibility study on providing accommodation at Llancairfawr, so also things aimed at reducing the subsidy. That's been extended with an additional just over £200,000 worth of funding, so we are rolling that process up with staff for the next couple of months. The engagement work, and it is actually the final slide, which is to talk to you about the ongoing community engagement and Caerphilly conversation. So building on some of that work and resident engagement work which has happened over the last 12 to 18 months, we're using that feedback internally to develop the corporate review programme and making sure that the views of our residents are incorporated into the service review process as well. Just to give you an example, using those views to input into quality of life issues around the frontline services review, and some focus groups which have happened with people who said that they wish to talk to the council about what they could do to work with us together. They've happened as well. In terms of engagement projects, training is rolled out for elected members, as you'll be aware, on community involvement, empowerment and co-production, and this has been used to support the rollout of the Community Empowerment Fund, which Sue referenced in her slides, and some further sessions, and taking on board the comments made that we could maybe provide some further information to members on that, just to make sure that it's working properly. First assessment of the Community Empowerment Fund is going to be later this month, so we will have some feedback then after then. And then finally, a new authority-wide engagement strategy is being developed to strengthen our work with the public and taking in their views, and particularly public participation and our approach to stakeholder engagement. So that work is ongoing as well. I think that's it, Chair. Actually, this is the final slide then. So just in summary, really, the review programme is themed. There's a lot in there. It's a very broad report, and obviously lots of questions coming in from members. But it is themed around those three key areas. But in view of the progress I think we've made, I think hopefully the report's giving you a flavour of that.
A very good flavour. It's covered an awful lot of excellent work going on. Thank you very much for that, Kath. I'm going to invite questions on the final couple of slides. So we have Councillor Morgan first, please.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I would just like to say that thank you to Kath Peters, the author of this report. It really is something really to celebrate when we look at all the investments and all the positive impacts these developments are going to have for our residents in the borough. But I am going to ask one question, perhaps of Ed Edmonds, on this. This is very ambitious. There are a lot of great projects going on. I love the fact that the TD units, the 11 units just recently built, they're already let, and we've already got businesses up and running in them. Fantastic. Chartist Gardens, there's just so much good news here. You know, Idris Davis 3G pitch, fantastic. But I'm going to come back again and I'm going to reflect on the forthcoming report. Have we got the capacity to deliver all these fantastic projects?
Thank you, Councillor Morgan. Ed, please.
I'm going to ask a supplementary, if I may, Councillor Morgan. By when? if you need them done by next Christmas, it'll be a struggle. No, look, in all seriousness, you've heard enough from us this evening about the resourcing challenges that we've got. And some of those capacity issues will have a direct impact on some of the things that we're trying to achieve here. I think we would certainly prefer to focus on the corporate reviews and the place shaping work that we consider to be a priority, rather than potentially trying to inch all of this stuff forward and stretching ourselves a little bit too thinly. So at the moment, I think we accept that we need to prioritise those corporate reviews and have a think about what we can do and under what circumstances, whilst also bearing in mind that we have got this challenge from Cabinet to go out and recruit some additional resource to come in and help. I don't think I've ever been in a position throughout my entire career where we've had so much work, so much budget available to bring staff in, and so much difficulty in getting those staff in to deliver the work. So it is going to take a little bit of working through. We are going to have to sequence it and prioritise it. But as I mentioned previously, this was always going to be a multi-annual kind of review programme, and we will make sure that we do a proper job. I'd rather do things right than do things quick.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Ed. If I could just come back, Chair, it does give me great comfort to know that you're going to prioritise these ambitions, and you know, I would rather deliver 10 of them well than 20 of them half finished, you know. So it gives me comfort what you've said there, Ed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Councillor Morgan. Councillor Mann, please.
Thank you, Chair. I was very pleased to hear Councillor Morgan's comments about TD. I remember more than one futile conversation with so-called business officers who were very pessimistic about the merits of building solar units, and it's good to hear that they are successful already. The other one, Chair, it's Kath mentioned the visitor centre at the Toyne and the unpronounceable ice cream in there, but I may be out of date on this one, but I'm just wondering what the thoughts are on the unit underneath. There was a very successful art shop under there, which I know the owner recently retired. And the last I was told about this, that there were various options were being looked at. Again, we're talking about innovation, etc., etc. I'm just wondering what plans are for that, if any, or maybe they've already been agreed. I don't know.
Would anyone have an answer for that, please?
Sorry, Chair, I don't think any of my team would be able to respond on that. I would suppose Rhea and Kite may be the best area to target that question, Chair.
Okay, well, I'll pop up to Treorchy then.
Thank you for that.
Okay, Chair, I can pursue it elsewhere anyway.
Yep, okay, thank you. Right, let's move on to the recommendation. Firstly, Kath, thank you to Kath and to all the officers for their presentations. As has been said already by Councillor Morgan and others, it's a hugely impressive bundle of programmes and projects being taken forward to the benefit of residents and the county borough. The progress is good. We will want to monitor further, but thank you very much for the summary. Can we move on to the recommendation, which is on page 19, colleagues? Members are asked to note the contents of the report and make any comment on progress against the strategy, which we have, prior to the update being provided to Cabinet. So we duly noted. Thank you. We'll move on to the last item on our agenda today. Item 8, Corporate Services and Miscellaneous Finance 2021-22, Budget Monitoring Report, brackets period 5. Cabinet Member Councillor Leonard Stenner again, please. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you again, Chair. This report is provided to ensure that members are informed of the projected financial position for the Directorate of Corporate Services and Miscellaneous Finance. The report shows the projected revenue expenditure for the 2021-22 financial year. The recommendation is shown at 3.1 and members are requested to note the contents of the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stenner. I understand Councillor Mann has a question on this. Councillor Mann?
Thanks, Chair. A lot of this has been covered in a way by officers and Councillor Morgan earlier, and again, I don't think I did. I meant to thank all the officers involved in the previous report, but really the sort of the theme running through this particular report is vacancies. They describe as delays in recruitment. They describe, but basically, it's people not in jobs, and certainly from a couple of areas that I've been involved with recently, there seems to be a huge lack of resilience in some areas. If a person is off, there's just nobody there to back up. Now, I accept the fact that it is difficult to recruit people, and I know from the past that there are certain neighbouring authorities, Torvine springs to mind, who were determined previously to pay megabucks to poach some of our good officers. But you know, the sort of jobs that are offered by the authority, with job guarantees, with pensions, etc. I'm a bit surprised that we are struggling as much as we appear to be to actually get people in jobs, and really all that wonderful ambitious stuff that we were hearing about a few minutes ago, it's not going to happen unless you've got people to actually do the job.
Thank you, Councillor Mann. I think Ed partially at least addressed that concern in the previous item, but I know he'll want to come back now. Ed.
Look, I feel like I've said as much as I can on this at the moment. You know, we have seen a number of officers exit the authority recently to neighbouring local authorities. In some cases, that could be financial. In other cases, it could be local circumstances. You know, I think it's probably fair to say that this world of agile working has probably opened up the ability to work in other authorities whereby a long commute might have stopped you wishing to previously. I think we've also seen in some other public service organisations, not just in local government, salaries and the kind of benefits that we are able to offer our employees around flexible working arrangements and so on are in place and then some. It is a real battle for us, but you know, we've got to resolve this. This is not something that we can just sit back and let happen. As I mentioned previously, it's going to take some creative thinking. It may well take some adjustments to some of the practices that have been in place to date. But we've got to get on with it and come up with some solutions to this. So, you know, I'll be interested to come back and share with members in the next month or two whether we've managed to crack some of that stuff. But I'd also want to be cracking that stuff based on evidence rather than just rolling the dice, trying something, thinking it's worked and throwing all our eggs into that basket. We're going to have to try a few things, do some proper research and evidence around that to make sure that what we're doing is right. But I also think there's a role, as I've said previously, in working with our neighbouring authorities to make sure that we are getting the best for ourselves. And that's a slightly altruistic view, but taking Councillor Mann's earlier point about other neighbouring authorities poaching staff, that's in no one's best interests.
Oh,
Thank you, Ed.
Thanks, Ed. Could I just ask, before Lynn comes in, Chair, it sounds as if there is a net loss. Traditionally, a lot of these things were tit for tat in a way. People would go either way. But is anyone looking at why people are leaving rather, or is this what you intend to do? Because it does appear that you know, there is a deficit at the moment.
That might be a question for Lynn. Thank you, Ed. Lynn, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just to pick up on what Ed was saying, really, whilst we are having difficulties recruiting in some areas, it is important to have the balance. We are continuing to recruit to lots of areas, so we don't have a general recruitment problem with all of our posts. We are very successful in recruiting to some posts, so I wouldn't want members to think that we're not recruiting at all. We are, and the pandemic doesn't seem to have slowed that down at all, especially in some areas. With regards to Councillor Mann's other question, we do exit questionnaires for all staff that are leaving, and they also have the opportunity to come and have discussions with staff in HR if they wish to as well. While staff don't need to tell us why they're leaving, we are doing our best to try and find out why, and where there's anything we can do about that, then obviously we do look to do so.
Thank you for that, Lynn. Councillor Mann.
No, thanks, Lynn. It's obviously not a simple one, but as I say, without the people in a job, we're not going to achieve much, are we?
Fair enough. I think Ed's right. We've talked around the issue now about vacancies in both this item and the last. I think it's worth our committee recording and noting our concern about the ongoing vacancies and welcoming Ed's advice about the work being undertaken to address that. I think that's worth noting today. There aren't any other hands showing, so given the time, let's say the recommendation on this item is on page 47 and members are asked to note the report's contents. We have duly noted them. Thank you very much to all members and officers for contributing to this meeting this evening. And with that, I declare the meeting closed. Can we confirm that the recording is stopped, please?
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Chair, can I just check, is there another report on the agenda before I close the...
No, the final item was item 8 on corporate services,
right,
miscellaneous finance.
Yeah, okay, I'll just close the recording now.
Thank you.
You panicked.